So we are coming down to the final hours of the campaign. The parties are now talking less about policies, it seems, and more about their opponents. Let's hear from major party candidates now on the latest campaign developments and what to expect over the next couple of days as Canadians consider where they want to mark their ballot. Sarah Eves is the Liberal candidate in the BC riding of Central Okanagan, Similkameen-Nicola. Alex Ruff is the Conservative candidate for re-election in the Ontario riding of Bruce Grey, Owen Sound, and Lindsay Mathyssen is the candidate for re-election for the NDP in the Ontario riding of London Fanshawe. Good to see you all. Sarah Eves, let me start with you if I can. Justin Trudeau stepped up his appeal to progressive voters today to swing to the Liberals in the final days of the campaign. I guess I'm wondering what you think it says of the campaign or the policies or the record in government that those progressive voters aren't already all lined up behind the Liberals.
Well, I personally know that in my riding, the progressive voters sometimes don't get that clear message about how we all are actually offering similar things, except for we have a detailed plan on how to get there. And we need to unite in order to ensure that the Conservatives don't come up the middle, at least in my riding.
All right, Mr. Ruff. Mr. O'Toole also called on disgruntled voters to line up behind the Conservatives if they want to defeat Justin Trudeau. Who's that message meant for, other than the supporters of the People's Party of Canada?
I think it's meant for all Canadians. I mean, I'm hearing at lots of doors as I'm door knocking from Liberals, NDP, Green candidates, Conservatives, PPC. Why are we in an election? And at the same time, they're exceedingly tired of the last 6 years of promises with no delivery, and Canada's Conservative Party has a plan. We have a recovery plan that we've been had out there on day one of this election, and we're pushing that. We have a plan to get the economy back on track, and we're pushing that, and that's what I'm hearing at the doors is, A, why are we in an election? And if you want to get rid of Trudeau, you got one party.
What else are you hearing about the PPC? It's polling around, as I checked here, 10% or so in your riding, maybe a little less. You're well ahead of any challengers. We should point that out. But how concerned are Conservatives about the rise of the PPC and how that could cost Conservatives where there are tight races?
Well, I think all Canadians are concerned, and it just speaks to the frustration of the last 6 years and in particular the last 18 months. So Canadians that are frustrated with the current government are looking at options, and they're looking at all options. And I think that's why even the other parties are ticking upwards, because people are fed up with the current Liberal government, and they're looking at different options. So I'm personally not worried. I mean, I've spent 25 years in the military. We live in a democracy. People can vote who they want to vote for. But I'm confident that enough Canadians are going to see the Conservative Party and vote for us.
Lindsay Mathyssen, your leader, Mr. Singh, called Justin Trudeau an abject failure today and said he's bad for Canada. But the truth is, for Progressive, the polls seem to suggest now Justin Trudeau's the only leader who can beat Erin O'Toole. Why do you think New Democrats have not emerged as the leading choice for Progressives?
Well, actually, to be quite honest, on the doorsteps in London Fanshawe, I'm hearing how excited people are about Jagmeet Singh and about the leadership that he's going to provide. They can tell that he's this genuine, caring person who is the choice for that true change. I've heard from the very beginning, like Alex mentioned, that people don't understand why an election was needed. They don't agree with it. They are upset with Justin. They keep telling me anybody but Justin, and they say we really want that true change. And so they're looking at New Democrats, certainly the people that I've talked to, and they're excited about the change that could actually happen as opposed to a lot of the broken promises that Liberals have been promising for a very long time.
Sarah Eves, tell me about what you're hearing in your riding from people about, is this issue around the timing of the election called in a pandemic, is that settled for voters where you are?
I would say it's settled. I know when it first happened, there was concern. I mean, I personally was actually on evacuation alert in Merritt, and the town I work in, Logan Lake, was on evacuation order. So initially people were asking me a lot about why now, but as we talked about issues, they'd really come to the decision that there's two clear choices in front of them. One of them is to continue to do the progressive work that the Liberals are doing, or to go backwards in time and have the Conservatives.
Mr. Ruff, you talked about the division. We've all sort of talked about it. And I get the feeling in talking to people that it's been kind of an angry campaign. People are angry. We've seen some vandalism, some personal attacks, some protests. And I guess I'm wondering what you think is going to be, where we're going to be left after the election, no matter who wins.
Well, I actually think if we can get back under a conservative government, we'll get this country united. Back 6 years ago, this country was united, and unfortunately, we've seen a separatist party come out of Quebec, come back up to power, or not power, but reach third-party status. We see definitely some unhappy constituents and Canadians out in Western Canada. So I actually think most Canadians want to have a leader, a prime minister, and a government in power that is going to keep this country united and understand that, look, we got to be there for everybody, all Canadians in all sectors, and Ottawa shouldn't be picking and choosing. We need to be united. And look, I've been serving this country my whole adult life, and I'm a big believer in this country. We live in the best country in the world, and we need to stay focused on the positive.
Lindsay Mathyssen, what kind of, have you seen any kind of that anger on the campaign trail yourself? Have you been subjected to it, and why do you think it's happening?
People are they are angry. I think that they've just been so torn for so long. They've been stressed out about their families, keeping their families safe, keeping themselves safe, wondering about their jobs and economic security. There were so many issues before in terms of the cost of housing and mental health, and all of these things have been exacerbated, of course, by the pandemic. Things were changing constantly, and that's what I've heard more from people, that they're just exhausted and they are looking for that leadership. We haven't received that leadership at the federal level from the Liberal government, and people, like I said before, they're telling me how excited they are for the strong leadership and that genuine caring that's coming from a leader. They can feel that from Jagmeet Singh, and they know that comes from New Democrats. In my riding, we've served people for a very long time, and it's that service and it's that kindness and that caring that they rely upon, and that's what they're looking for.
Okay, Sarah, Eves, let me turn back to you. Your party's got another candidate controversy today with a candidate in Toronto, Kevin Vuong, who's charged with sexual assault in 2019, but the charges were dropped. Justin Trudeau said today the party only learned of this candidate's past from a media report in the Toronto Star. And I guess I'm wondering what you think that says about the party's process for vetting candidates. And are you okay with the way Justin Trudeau's handled this?
I think everyone understands that every political party takes these types of allegations really seriously. I know that from what I've heard internally, we only did learn about them yesterday. I am positive the party will look at why we didn't hear until yesterday, and obviously make changes to the vetting process. But that we have asked the candidate to pause their campaign while we look into it. But as you said, the charges that we know of at this point are dropped, and it's being investigated. So that's an ongoing process right now.
Right. Some people suggest the candidate should be fired. That was the call today. What are your thoughts on that?
I think as the investigation is going on, we can't make that decision until we actually have that information. And I believe that's what the Liberal Party is doing, and they take them seriously, and we know they will take action once that investigation is done.
All right, Mr. Ruff, what are your thoughts on how this is handled?
Are you talking about this allegation?
Yeah.
Well, look, the candidate should be doing the right thing, and obviously, if they have allegations against them, and I mean they should be afforded due process. But in the end, this has become a bit of a pattern here. I mean, in the Liberal Party, there's been a number of candidates that have, over time, that have had different allegations made against them, and ultimately, that lack of leadership, I think, is the most important thing to point out. The Prime Minister is not the type of individual that seems to be, don't do as I do, and doesn't want to show that leadership that I expect, and I know Aaron O'Toole has shown when we've had any allegations brought up against any candidates. We ask them first and foremost to step down, do the right thing until the process goes through its the whole due process, right. And then from there, the person can be given the appropriate thing. But let's not put somebody in such a controversial position in the first place.
All right. Lindsay Mathyssen, let me turn to you. What are your thoughts about how this is being handled? And it brings in this clash again about due process. Charges were dropped, but by the same token, part of the story here is the Liberal Party didn't even seem to know that there was a charge.
Well, I would actually have to go back in terms of earlier in this campaign. Survivors of sexual assault watched for quite a long time while Justin Trudeau defended Raj Saini. And the Liberal Party of Canada knew that those allegations were out there, several, in fact. And so yet again, we have Mr. Trudeau saying that they're going to wait. But I would actually really like to know what they mean by pausing on a campaign. I mean, these people could be potentially elected. They aren't being withdrawn. Will they become members of parliament? What does that say to the electorate? What does that say to this idea of a feminist so-called prime minister? These are again, we've seen this lack of leadership from the Liberal government and the Liberal Party. We went through this all through the spring in terms of sexual misconduct in the military. I sat on the committee for the status of women, and it's just a repeat, and it's unacceptable.
Okay. We'll have to leave it there for our time tonight. I want to thank you all for joining me for this discussion, as I do with all the candidates who appear in our show. I wish you all good luck, and take care, everyone, and we'll talk again soon. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Take care, Peter.